Who's online? I'd like to know.
Baruch is here. Yehuda was here a few minutes ago. Shmuli's here.
I'm here.
Hey, Shmuley.
Hi.
Kids are there.
He's a little guy.
That's your youngest student, Rabbi Paltiel.
Huh?
My step
That's your youngest student.
So who? Yehuda is there?
Yehuda was
Yeah,
here.
I'm here. I'm just taking care of a baby right now. Yeah. Mr. Chairman,
In Amadis Kassia.
gotta come over. What's that?
I would hope that where is Akiva in the room over there?
No, Akiva is not here. Okay. All right, let's start just above the middle of page Lamed.
It was in 2010, you guys were here 2 months earlier.
What?
Based on the notes over here, in 2010, you guys were at this point 2 months earlier. So it looks like you got to pick up the pace.
3 years ago, exactly.
2 months,
May 28th.
in 2010, you were here already by May, and now it's already, what is it, June or July? June? July. It's July. You guys are. You got to pick up. You got to pick up the pace. You're 2 months behind. 2 months behind
The
schedule.
whole point is, anyway. That's good. It's interesting. All right, on page Lamed, just above the middle, the line begins. Sheba ba'adyod nimsheh b'chinas hatainuk. That in Atzilus itself, the Tainug is disseminated, is brought down into the world of Atzilus, so to speak, what's called a world, through Chochmah. This is called Chochmah Yilor. All right, we'll just continue. Maybe sometimes we'll have a chance to discuss the point of bringing down Atzilus in this whole discussion. Just as we explained earlier in the Moshel part, the Nefesh Ha'odom, when we talk about the human soul, that we said she'hanefesh misanei b'chol min yoinik, that the nefesh delights in every kind of delight, b'chol hachushim ve'akoiches, any experience of the chushim and the koiches, the senses and the koiches of the functional capabilities of the person, the nefesh is involved in these and actually delights in their performance, in their delight. This was a phenomenal statement, which comes back several times in these pages. That the first statement is that in everything there is an element of delight, and this delight element gives it a presence, and this is what gives it chayus. This is what gives it the element of life. the amount of life in addition to a presence. We discussed it right in the beginning of this whole discussion. Maybe we'll revisit this soon. And that is the oinig that is experienced, that is felt and experienced in every koyach, in every activity. This oinig, this was the big statement, and this oinig is not experienced within the koyach itself. It's not the hand that mishandle. Sure, there is oinig in the hand, and when the hand moves and the hand writes, when the mouth speaks, but this is the oinig of the nefesh in that particular activity. And this was the phenomenal statement. Nefesh is in a different realm completely. Nefesh can't even relate to this whole physical world, and yet the nefesh is a participant there and delights in all of these activities. This is the statement that we made, and this is what brought us to recognize that there has to be a process that relates and connects the nefesh to all of these activities, an intermediate. And here's what he says again. As we explained earlier in the Moshe, in the nefesh odom, that the nefesh in Nisan b'chol mini yoinei b'chol achushim ha'koiches, that the nefesh actually takes delight in all the chushim ha'koiches. But then, v'harei ha'tainuk shebe'etzem ha'nefesh, but is it not that the tainuk that is in the etzem ha'nefesh, that is in the essence of the nefesh, mushlo mikol koyach proti, is totally devoid of any specific koyach. I'll come back to this. This we'll discuss a little bit now. V'atainug hanal, but the tainug that we are talking about, the tainug of the koyches and chushim, bo behagbala b'koyches proti, is actually experiencing and is presented behagbala in a finite manner because in the koyches of protim in individual koyches and within the koyches individual activities. And the nefesh itself is mushlol, is totally devoid of any koyach proti, Now this principle of the nefesh is muslim we call koyach proti, which is again not novel. We discussed it many times, but I think it's an opportune moment to bring it home a little bit clearer. Essentially, what we explained, that a koyach proti, specific koyach, it is to accomplish a particular accomplishment. Say, for instance, to move from one place to the other place. That's a koyach proti. That's a specific activity. That specifically, that whole concept of moving from one to the other exists only at the goof level, on the koyches and chushim. Why? Because the koyches and chushim, when they are here, they're not here. If you're looking in this direction, you're not looking in that direction. If the cup is here, it's not here. Because we're talking about koyches protiyin, in the specific koyches, Specific koiches means like this, that yes, indeed, I'm going to go off a little bit. I'm sure you understand. Yes, indeed, this is my house. And how does that manifest on an activity level? It is manifest by the fact that I can sit here, or I can sit there, or I can walk from here to there. On the factual level, this is how it's manifest. But on the nefesh level, there, it doesn't need to be manifested. He is automatically here and there, automatically. He doesn't have to get from here to there. He's everywhere at all times. On the nefesh level. Like we explained several times, especially lately, that if you were to expand your house and move the wall 10 feet out, now the house is twice as large. You don't have to expand yourself in order to occupy this additional part of the house. You automatically everything in the house. So this Ayin, in the nefesh, the whole Ayin of moving from one place doesn't exist, because the nefesh is at all times where it wants to be. And as we said, that actually, in very real ways, the person, a human being, perceives a life that he lives in the entire universe. And if it were less than the entire universe, he would feel confined. Not confined in his activities, but confined in terms of his reality. He belongs in entire reality. That's what the human being is. He owns entire reality. He has to affect the entire reality. That's the essential human being. I can speak all the time that when a person is in prison, he suffers very profoundly, very deeply, and it's not a definable pain that you can attribute to something. Assuming it's a humane prison where he can eat and sleep and play tennis, and he is still suffering. He's suffering the human element. He's suffering on an essential level. Because the essence knows no bounds. So being that the essence knows no bounds, how does it relate to a specific activity? Muslim we call proto. And yet we're saying that the nefesh is misaned from the various activities in the various koiches.
But I mean, from that perspective, isn't it kind of that in itself is the answer? Because the koiches and the pratim relate to that reality within the realm of guf and elam. The nefesh doesn't need to be facilitated to reach that reality. It exists in that reality constantly, but inside of a group, inside of the elam, that's how all these koiches and pratim, that's how they're actually relating to that reality itself. Like you move from one end.
I understand. Fine. What is our question? Our question is, we're saying that the nefesh itself is misaned in all of these pratim. That the head is misaned, that's no problem.
No, but the nefesh is misaned because it is able, via their facilitate the relation. To relate to that reality, even on the goof level.
But the nefesh doesn't relate to that, doesn't.
Well,
the nefesh cannot appreciate that.
But the nefesh is inside of a goof. Right.
Okay. How does the nefesh turn out to be inside the goof? Nefesh is not.
Hashem's will. He forces them together.
It's not a question of Hashem's will. We're talking about oinek. We're not talking about imprisonment. Oinek means that the nefesh really experiences delight in this. Where does the nefesh come to the point?
There must be a mamutza between body and
You're a genius.
Huh?
You're a genius.
Because the hand doesn't feel anything. The hand
All right.
doesn't feel anything.
You understand? This is the question. This is the question. How is it that the nefesh is misamek from these chushim and peiros? How does the nefesh relate to them? But as far as the nefesh is concerned, this whole thing don't exist. Like Shmuel said, like Horav and Shmuel said, that it has to be, there is a mamutza in the middle. Okay, let's try to understand. We're repeating it so many times on the different from different angles to get the sense of what this mamutza is. And therefore, as we said originally, we're repeating now, that it's imperative.
Can I stop you for a minute before you go on?
Yes.
Just to ask one question. Going back to the prison marshal, why is it that the nefesh, the indivisible nefesh, which is above all of these specific pratim and chayses, experiences tsar from
the same way as it experiences delight. Okay? And therefore it is imperative to say Shezehu Alidei Koyach Chloli, that this is the effect and accomplished Alidei Koyach Chloli by the effect of a Koyach Chloli. A Koyach that's called Chloli. What is the term Koyach Chloli? Again, this is a review in a sense. A koyach versus nefesh. Nefesh is not a koyach. And the oinig in the nefesh is not a koyach in the real sense of the word. We call it koyach makifi. It's not a koyach. A koyach means something that accomplishes things by a functioning level, activity. With a koyach, to some kind of activity. The nefesh does not accomplish things through activity, nor does oinig and rosa accomplish things through activity. For those who are with me, I'd like to explain to you what it means. Chochmah, which is a supreme koyach, is likened to sight. Sight, as we always point out, is a phenomenal thing. That at one instant, literally in one instant, in less than an instant, without any time, you observe the entire reality that's in front of you. So this seems to be something that's accomplished without action. It happened instantaneously. Now I'd like you to, come with me. We mentioned many times, but now I'm going to the details. let's examine this. Let's compare this experience that by sight you are in the entire environment. You see it, you're immediately in the entire environment that's in front of you. That sight brings you to that. Compare that to the sense of oineg, that you are really in this world, you are really in this locale. Before you open your eyes, before you observe it. For example, to make the point, when you observed it, it's wonderful, so it brought you into this locale. But that lasts as long as you keep your eyes open. When you close your eyes, you no longer experience that presence, that union. But are you still in the room? In your personal perception, your personal experience, your personal oineg, are you still in that room?
When your eyes are closed, are you still...
Yes, and your eyes are closed. Are you still in this room? When your eyes are closed, are you still in Brooklyn? Are you still in the world?
Yes.
Are you still in the world? That element that you're still in the world, is that by some kind of an activity, or is that just a fact? You experience this by activity, or by a much something which is beyond activity? You actually experience the reality of it itself. This is the principle that we say, that oineg and rotzun are not koiches. They are koiches in a sense, but not koiches functioning koiches. Because oineg and rotzun you experience not via activity. You experience its reality, you experience the reality of the whole world, and you have oineg from that. You find that there is a big world around you. Not through any kind of activity. Let's take this even more precisely. It is entirely primary by human being that he wants to live. He wants to live in society. He doesn't want to live in isolation. He wants to live in an inhabited area. Whether he interacts with the people, with his neighbors, or he doesn't, that's separate. But the very fact that he lives in an inhabited area has a very profound effect on a person. Again, that does not relate to any kind of activity.
Being near people?
Not living in an inhabited area. We are talking about interaction, social interaction. You have your home, your comfortable home. Move your home to a desert. Be just as comfortable.
The point here is that it's not for any practical purpose.
For any practical purpose, or active purpose.
I don't know if I'm following. I mean, this second example, I guess when we live in a place, there's so much practical activity that happens. It's hard to think of it as...
But I'm asking you, it's hard to think of it. It's true, because we used to think in terms of, I need interaction. But in reality, think a little deeper.
Reality is being near people, but
not near people.
Being
Again,
among people.
In an inhabited area. To live in a desert versus to live in a cultivated area.
Okay, nothing to do with electricity, running water, just right. Trying to think of it.
Okay, can you think of it?
The first mashal was that sight and
there is definitely that that the effect of the reality of the situation, not of the interaction, functional effect, the effect of the reality. The reality is that this is an inhabited area. And the person feels a certain comfort in being in an inhabited area. Why? Because he is a cultured person. He's not an animal, and he relates to his environment. Even if it doesn't have any practical implication. That aspect does not come to any kind of activity. In other words, you cannot close your eyes and open your eyes, get it and lose it. You're there with closed eyes and with open eyes. Whereas that which you experience by sight really does depend on what you see. Does depend on what you see. In other words, Chochmah, which is like and to sight, is really a koyach, even though it's called a koyach kloli, as we discussed for it. It's not a koyach proti, a specific koyach of a particular function, but it is a koyach, because everything that comes through chokhmah comes through some kind of an activity, maybe an instantaneous activity. Like we say, open your eyes. Open your eyes, there's an instant. It's still, so to speak, something that takes place in time and space.
I mean, it's okay, but only in as much as that it necessitates an active. There's no distinct, like in sight we say we open our eyes, but even when you're looking, without this, the whole opening your eyes point, the only thing you're doing is you're looking. I mean, you're just enabling. You're enabling the world to jump inside. You're seeing. You see.
Put it in any kind of a, so to speak, sub element of activity. It's still an activity. You're there because you see it. In Oinig, you're there because you were there. Not because you see it. That puts these two levels in different categories completely. This is Etzba Nefesh, and this is Koyach Nefesh. Again, if you're with me, let's take this a step further. Why is there such a Koyach that you can instantaneously see the entire environment? What kind of koyach is this? What kind of miracle is this? Activity has to take time. So in one place, another place. What kind of koyach is it that, boom? What's the answer? This koyach is so refined and so potent that it reflects the reality of the nefesh. It reflects the reality of the nefesh on the koyach level. You are in it. This is you are in it. The koyach reflects the fact that you are in it on the koyach level. I'd like to know who got this point.
It's very funny. I lost
Baruch? Shmuel, if you would come every day, you would be in a different One second. Who got this point? Got this point? Yeah. This is the point. This is the meaning of the Mamutz. Mamutz is the pshat that he's actually reflecting of that which is higher than Mamutz. But he's reflecting it at the koyach level. Is reflecting the reality in a functioning level, in an active level, in a koyach level. Huh?
He's reflecting.
Yes, reflecting. He's experiencing it at the koyach level.
Koyach is physical, is in this world.
Koyach is in this world. Sight is in this world. The reality of the nefesh is something higher than the world.
It seems though like you would have to say that according to that, Chachma is a derivative of the.
I don't hear you, what?
It seems like according to that, it makes sense to say that Chachma is really a derivative of the Ayin. That Chachma is the first. It's Ayin translated. He's saying not that Chachma exists as a receptacle. Chachma exists as the product of that Ayin being translated down on yet a lower level.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're speaking to me. Yeah. Oh boy. Probably is. Probably is maybe the way it's connected. Okay, so you got the point. Good. I appreciate you calling. This is the principle of Hinduism. It takes a dover atzmi and translates it in an arena that is completely devoid of atzmi. It's in a functioning level. And yet it is able to do it. So we see it then from sight to now he said this is what Chochmah is. Let's look inside. The line begins Shezehu. Shezehu al idei koyach kloli hamamutze b'neiam. That this occurs, this bringing the nefesh, the oiling nefesh, connecting it to the koyches, to the functioning koyches. It is accomplished through a koyach kloli. What is a koyach kloli? So here we have the clear handle and example, and I'm saying what's with koyach kloli. With sight, you see everything at a glance, all inclusive. And yet, we see everything all inclusive. It's not at all the same as being in everything. It's not in the same realm. So this is a koyach kloli, a koyach that takes the entire reality, but it breaks it down into pieces, into detail, and it includes them all. That's what Chochmah is. Because like in sight observes an expanse of space. An expanse of space consists of many pieces of space. But this glance of sight glances at all of these pieces at once. But you cannot glance at space without recognizing that it encompasses a lot of different pieces of space. This is the concept of chlori. Chlori means atzmi or makifi means something else. No protein, no details, no components. Chlori means there is components, there are components, but this automatically includes all the components. This is chokhmah, this is like sight. We understand readily the difference between the components of sight and the components of sound. Components of sound come to you in an organized fashion. Individually, sequentially, each one taking up its own space of time, and it comes to you in that graduality fashion. Components of sight, of space, also each one takes up a separate piece of a separate place, but it doesn't come to you in any kind of any kind of organization. The entire time, the entire space is observed as one entity. Michael, be well. Michael. Not going yet. Okay. This is the term koyach kloli. Koyach, that is a cloud. Koyach normally is a functioning koyach that does a specific thing. A koyach kloli is a koyach that does everything. Hamamutza b'neiam, that is intermediate between them. The whole, and which koyach is that? This is koyach ha-chokhmah. As we said earlier, in the nefesh is the koyach ha-chokhmah. And what's so special about the koyach ha-chokhmah? Again, this is a repeat of what we learned before. Shehu keli, which is a keli, which can receive lahagiluyim atzmiyim shebenefesh. What is giluyim atzmiyim shebenefesh? Giluyim atzmiyim. Atzmi refers to this other level that we spoke about in our motion. The etzem is in the entire reality, because the etzem is entire reality, not in the only in the components of the reality, but in the reality itself. It will be accurate to say that the nefesh, as we said before, the nefesh literally perceives itself to be in the entire universe.
You say the entire universe, or its entire, or its?
It perceives itself in the entire universe. The entire universe, the entire reality, the godly reality. That's how never perceives. When it comes down, like we said, in sight, in chokhmah, even though you observe a huge environment, the environment that you're observing at once, but you're still observing an environment that you can observe from the position that you're in. From the vantage point, you don't see the entire, you don't, like we explained the other day, you don't see what's behind you, you see the entire environment in front of you. So there's a similarity between that and the Etzem, but they're not exactly the same at all. The Etzem actually is in everything. Whereas the Chokhmah is not in everything. Chokhmah is that which you can perceive. But it has this quality that it has it's a koyach kloli. This is the meaning that it's a keli for the Yeruyim Atzmiyim. What's Atzmiyim? Atzmiyim is what the nefesh is, the very reality of the nefesh that it has everything, everywhere. Chokhmah is a keli for Yeruyim Atzmiyim. Like we said before, how is it possible that we should be able to see at a glance in one instant an entire environment? It is possible only because we are in the environment. We recognize ourselves that we are in the environment. If not for that recognition, for that initial recognition, when we observe the entire environment, we would lose our mind. We won't be able to process this. What is this? 1 mile, 2 miles, 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles? I can't process it. I can't relate to it. Why am I able to relate to it? Because I actually experience the entire reality. I'm not surprised about the size of the reality at all. The more the better.
Where then comes Yiras Hashemayim? If you're not surprised, you're able to, where comes Yira?
If you promise that you're going to be tomorrow morning in class, I'll tell you. Deal? Yira comes from recognizing that he is actually beyond that.
How is it though that Chokhmah has this ability to be a Ke'eh Klali?
Excuse me?
How is it that where does it come to Chokhmah the ability that it should be a Ke'eh Klali? Because that seems to be just as great a wonder that Atmu should be able, that Einig should be able to get into Ke'eh Pratim, is that one of the Ke'eh Pratim should be able to get on a level that it's shaykh to be a Kli to Einig and Eidus Atzmi.
So this we explained many times. The phenomenal element of Chokhmah is the beacon. Normally a koyach has a certain personal identity. Like, I have the koyach in my hand, I can pick up this cup. How can I pick up this cup? Because I want to pick up the cup? No. I can actually grab the cup, squeeze it through my fingers, and it becomes part of my hand. That's how I grab it. This is Yom Chokhmah is so big of it that it doesn't need to grab anything. I see it without knowing what I'm seeing. I'm satisfied. Because what I'm trying to see is a godly truth. I'm not trying to see the truth as it pertains to me. How I make sense out of it? What it means to me? No. I want to just see the reality.
Right, I know the whole the primary characteristic of Chachma is the bittul, but I guess my question is that, I mean, it makes not to lessen it, to say it makes for a good answer, but how exactly does that help if it's categorically as a kaya not shaykh to enig? What good does it do that it's mavatal itself before? It's still categorically not shaykh. Being a kaya, it's not.
The oil that's in Chochmah is not its own name. It does not in itself experience it.
Yeah, it has to be. It's a kli for the Eidos Asim which are coming.
And it recognizes that in an effort to the same. The statement of Chochmah is, I recognize that in an effort to the same. And Chochmah is privy to that knowledge, and that is Chochmah. This is what we said, that the peacock picks the king. What does he get out of the king?
The what?
The wise man chooses the king.
Chooses the king.
Right.
The wise man chooses the king.
Of all the ministers, he chooses the king. What's in the king? Peacock is not interested on the personal experience, personal benefit. To know that there is a king, that's his greatest oinak. There's a king, oh then, but reality is there, then it's real. Not my reality, there's absolute reality. This is what the Rambam says, that the first principle of wisdom is to know that there is a first being. But I don't know anything about him. Perhaps with some wisdom I'll be able to understand something. That is the primary reality. That is the source of everything.
That is the first principle of Chochmah.
That is the first principle that gives Chochmah support.
Now, trying to clarify, you said about 10 minutes ago that Chochmah is limited because it's seeing the world from one point of view. And then you said Chochmah wants to see the whole reality. So it's like the gray area there that I know.
Right. Chochmah is a koyach. And therefore it can only see from one point of view. It cannot see from everywhere. But in this sight, on one point of view, it recognizes that this one point of view is actually part of much greater reality.
So
There is what beyond my knowledge, my sight, my vision.
So in the vision of the point of view, there is an induction of the whole reality.
Of the whole reality. But not an induction in terms of knowledge, but a projection that there is a whole reality. He doesn't know it. He doesn't see it. When you open your eyes and see, you know that there is what's behind you. You don't see it. Why do you know that behind? Because it's real, so the reality doesn't stop. Reality doesn't stop by your line of vision, by your sphere of vision. this was a very, very important principle to understand what's in koyach klonis. This is the phenomenal koch. Okay. And Kochma is a keli lagiluyim atzmim shebenefesh. This way we discussed 2 pages ago. Giluyim atzmim shebenefesh. Atzmi means the etzem itself, which is the reality itself. And the Chochma is a keli for giluyim atzmim. And that's why in Chochma there is everything, because in etzem there is everything. Except in Etzem, it's not there is everything. Etzem is everything. And Chochma perceived that there is everything.
Chochma has the components which Etzem does not. Why does it feel like we had this already some pages ago? This is the same thing on a different level, and
there we discussed the mashal. Here we're talking about Atzilus. Now, in order to explain Atzilus, we are reviewing that which we explained already.
it seemed like Atzilus came up as another mashal of the way Chochma...
Atzilus didn't come as a mashal. Atzilus is actually the aim of our whole discussion.
Because of the union of Torah being the mitzvah between Ein Sof and Kriyas. So Atzilus is the aim of the whole discussion.
Moike, we're missing one person. Right? Is Yitzhak Blum still here?
Yeah.
So we're missing one person, right? Al? Okay, very good. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so just.
So which line?
I mean, in the line that begins the word Atzmiyim.
Okay.
That's below the middle. Moy came Yubon. So likewise, just as we spoke earlier about the Nefesh, we understood the Indian from a Musa of the Chochma. So similarly, we understood in the way it is in Atzilus. The day Sheyinye Amshochas Hatainuk the Atzmus Ein Boru. That in order that we should be able to draw the Tainuk from Atzmus Ein Sof, the Prote HaMadreges Atzilus in the various Madrigas of Atzilus, Zehu al dei bechinas Chochmo ilo d'Atzilus. This is via the Chochmo, the bechina of Chochmo ilo, that's in Atzilus. In other words, within Atzilus itself, which in general qualifies, generally speaking, as Chochmo, within that itself there is a Madriga called Chochmo ilo, the supreme Chochmo. And in Supreme Chochma, there is the element of awareness of the Oir and Sof, Shoira b'Chochma. Because Oir and Sof actually rests in Chochma. Chochma, that's it. This in that Oir and Sof, Shoira b'Chochma is Mamash Oir and Sof, but it is approximated at a much lower level. Hadin Oir HaNefesh is Shoira b'Chochma.
What means Shora?
Rests.
Rests. This Chochma is the general vision that we were talking
A
about.
mashal for Chochma is vision. Vision is on a physical level, there's no comparison.
I mean,
Yeah. But a mashal, relative to other koiches, vision is a mashal. And its similarities in many aspects. One of them is that vision is also without effort. you don't need to grasp anything in order to see it. You need to grasp something in order to feel it.
Rests in Chachma. Rests in it. Chachma law rests in Chachma.
No, Ayin Sefer is.
Oh. Oh, I see.
All right. This will be it for this evening. What could we get our meal together for?